Sam Antar. If you don't know who Sam Antar is, he's an interesting guy. So if you grew up in the New York metro area in the 80s and around that time, there was a store that sold appliances and electronics, washing machines, fridges, all that kind of stuff, called Crazy Eddie. Crazy Eddie. And they ran these hyper TV commercials, as the name Crazy Eddie suggests, on the TV. You saw them 1,000 times a day. They ran on the networks all the time. The Crazy Eddie TV commercials. So you were very familiar. And it turns out that the company was engaged in massive financial fraud. And the guy running that financial fraud for Crazy Eddie was this guy, Sam Antar. And he got caught. The company got caught. He got caught. He got federally prosecuted. He went to prison. He came out and he started a second life as an expert to expose financial fraud. Who would know better than him? It's like that Leonardo DiCaprio movie, right? Catch Me If You Can. It's the same kind of thing where that character, the real person in real life, did a lot of fraud with checks, pretended to be an airline pilot to get free travel, all kinds of stuff. And later in life, he would actually get hired by the FBI to work for the FBI to detect that kind of fraud. Same with Sam Antar. I don't know if he works for the FBI, maybe an independent business, but nevertheless, that's what he does now. And he's really gone after some of these Democrats for their financial fraud. And as you might imagine, as someone who himself was a professional financial fraudster, he's pretty good at picking up all the tricks. Next steps, he says, after the Letitia James indictment, superseding indictments, more indictments, expect expanded counts covering all three properties, Lafayette Avenue, Sterling Street, I think those are New York addresses, and the Virginia residence we already talked about in the indictment. The pattern was always the point, because if you have a pattern in practice, then it can't be accident, right? It can't be simple mistake. Mail and wire fraud charges. These are independent charges. 18 U.S.C. 1341 and 43. Every falsified declaration, interstate transmission that went over a fax or an email or a telephone, more crimes that can be charged. Co-conspirator indictments. Look for the walls to close in on the broker, closing attorney, niece, the father who signed on as a husband. And the notary, even in the notary publics. Once one flips, the mistake defense collapses under oath. Obstruction and cover up, the final wave, indictments of Department of Justice insiders who leaked, interfered, or falsified internal findings to protect Letitia James, to slow walk the investigation and the prosecution. The crime was mortgage fraud. The cover up was obstruction of justice. And it may well have been organized by inside the Department of Justice. It certainly appears that was the case. And there are more grand jury indictments coming in other districts for other people, folks. There's a bunch of stuff working its way through in Florida, for example, because that's where a bunch of the Mar-a-Lago stuff took place. And so grand juries, federal grand juries, are currently being impaneled in Florida, and it's going to be for a lot of stuff that involved Trump not that long ago. Bolton, John Bolton, his indictment is expected imminently. Adam Schiff's fraud case in the same district. Mortgage applications for a primary residence in Maryland. And also he got a primary residence mortgage application in the same time frame in California. Again, when you have these documents, folks, it's just not hard to prove these cases. It's very, very straightforward. We know a grand jury indictment's going to come down soon for Fani Willis, who did, of course, tried a prosecution in Trump. She has her own legal problems now. Remember her? Isn't it funny how she could be a sister of Letitia James, couldn't she? She was removed from her prosecution of Trump because she lied she put a special prosecutor in charge who was her boyfriend, her lover, paid him a ton of money. And then the boyfriend was flying her around to resorts, tropical islands, spending all kinds of money on her. She's being called in front of the Georgia legislature now. If that hasn't happened yet, I saw that announcement. It's quite possible she could be removed from her office and now indicted and prosecuted in federal court. And Christopher Wray, the former FBI director, who it looks like he hid a lot of exculpatory evidence about Trump. He hid it as part of what Comey did, as part of what Mueller may have done, although Mueller seems to be losing his mind, so who knows for certain, and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, nothing has changed for the left. They still intend, once they are back in power, to politically pursue their enemies. Meaning, if you're in this community, they mean us. They mean us. Now they're talking about once they're in political power again, they are going to prosecute ICE officers, federal law enforcement officers for doing their job, enforcing American immigration law. They're threatening it now. Trump's not even a year into this term of office, and they're threatening to bring essentially what they would call war crime charges against our ICE officers.
If you're ICE, you need to watch this video so you know exactly what you can expect when this administration's term ends. I'm going to read you the federal law and the state law, and you can have an idea of what you're going to be up against. 18 U.S. Code 242, titled Deprivation of Rights Under Color of Law, is a federal law that makes it a crime for someone acting under the authority of law to willfully deprive another person of their constitutional rights or privileges. This includes actions taken by the government officials like law enforcement officers that violate a person's federally protected rights. And
Sorry.
yes, this applies to undone.
I don't mean to play this whole thing. The guy's just a lunatic, but it's just his motivation, the motivation of the left. They're going to essentially do Nuremberg trials against federal law enforcement officers for simply doing their job. So if that's their intent, why would we hold back when we have legitimate crimes documented on public record that they've committed? Now, here's an interesting point I see come up. We note that they didn't do a perp walk of James Comey. They're probably not going to do a perp walk of Letitia James. And the reason for that is Lindsay Hannigan, Trump's former personal attorney, who he's appointed to be a federal prosecutor for those two cases. If she wants there to be a perp walk, she has to ask the court for an arrest warrant. And she's not doing that. She's only asking the court that a summons be issued. A summons is an order that you appear in court, but you just walk in under your own power. You're not under arrest. If you don't show up, they'll issue an arrest warrant. But if all you have is a summons, they're summoning you to court. That's different than an arrest warrant. An arrest warrant, you get handcuffed and you get the perp walk. And Trump's federal prosecutor, Lindsay Hannigan, is not asking for arrest warrants. So the court's not issuing them. The court doesn't issue them on their own initiative. They issue what you asked for. So why is she only asking for a summons and not the perp walk? Maybe for political theater purposes. I mean, of course, to Trump's heart of the MAGA, maybe they emotionally want to see a perp walk. But of course, they'll be equally satisfied just by the prosecution itself and ecstatic if they get the convictions. But it might turn off a lot of people in the middle of the political spectrum who Trump also wants to be attractive to if they do the perp walk. It may be perceived as overreach. I thought this was funny. So Ed, what the hell is Ed's name? Ed Martin. Ed Martin is a prosecutor. I think he was an interim federal prosecutor who was ultimately not confirmed by the U.S. Senate. But earlier, he started this investigation into Letitia James. He went to her property in New York City, I think in Brooklyn, the apartment building where she claimed 4 rental units, but it was actually 5. And he's standing outside her building, outside the building on the sidewalk, the public sidewalk, just looking at the building, just to see, can you see if there's 5 units there and not 4 units? And he gets accosted by a Karen who lives in the neighborhood, who, of course, it's New York, so she's a Democrat. Listen to this exchange. We all know Karens just like this Karen. Ed's in the tan overcoat there. What do they call that? Those coats again. I've owned a bunch of them. Trench coat. Here we go.
You're interested in the houses.
You're not interested in the houses. We know who lives here.
Is this like Second Empire?
It's just a tract house. That's what all of these things are.
I know, but when was it built, you think?
They're built before 1899.
Oh, so, okay.
Why are you being so disingenuous about what you're here for? You're not here about the houses. You're here because of who lives here. It's my neighborhood. It's my block. I have a right to know what you guys look like your official capacity.
I'm just happy to be on a block looking at a house.
I just thought that was funny.